Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I'm on my first coffee, standard MO. Oh my gosh, I obviously haven't spoken very much this morning. Right, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is submission deadline for the Claude Code Hackathon. And I don't want to be coding on this tomorrow. Tomorrow is about creating the 3-minute video that I need to do to accompany this. Any final cleanup, double checking the rules, all of those kind of things. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and think, oh my gosh, I've still got so much to do. So my plan is to get the rest of this finished today. And we will also go through, I mean, I do have the rules here that I copied in before. We'll go through this again and double check that everything's in line. The rules are actually pretty broad. I don't think it's that tricky. Also, there were some people in, when the hackathon first started, there was a Discord meeting video thing where all of the contestants got together and we got kind of like a welcome and a briefing and all of those kind of things. And there were a couple of people asking in the comments whether or not they could change the project that they'd submitted. So we all had to submit an idea that we wanted to build. And they were totally fine with that. They're like, yeah, sure, if you want to change the project idea, go for it. So they've been very, very flexible in how we do this. I guess the main thing they want is for people to have fun and to play with the technology, and I guess also to create a whole lot of first-hand proof that Claude Code is helping developers every day. So, with that said, I didn't look at this. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, by the way. I didn't look at any of this yesterday. Took the day off. My wife and I did, we set up an indoor seedling growing room. We've got a small room that we hardly ever use. She's been getting into gardening over the last year, so we set up an indoor seedling growing area with automated lights and heat pads and fans and all sorts. So she's carrying on with that today. And instead of me joining her with that, you get to enjoy my lovely company. So my brain doesn't remember where we were up to. I know what we're building, but that's about it. So I'm just going to have a look through and see where we're up to last. I might just go and do a recall. Oh, we added a license. That's right, because we pasted this requirements in, and one of them was everything shown in the demo must be fully open source. And Claude came back and said, you don't have a license, therefore technically it's not open source. So we added an MIT license. What else did we do? We updated the package JSON. Some kind of change we needed to do there. We were also looking at PS refers to the problem statement 3. We asked whether it met that one, wherever that one's gone. My brain. Example projects. Probably be easier if I rendered this as there we go. Problem statement 3, amplifying human judgment. It thought that problem statement 1 was the one that we fit the best. 2 was probably okay, and then when I said what about 3, he said actually that's probably the best. So I think we kind of meet all 3 problem statements. I don't know whether we have to do 1 or all 3, but I think we hit all 3. We wanted to make sure that we worked with the hackathon rules. How long did the planning session take? We did some compaction. I think what we should probably do is just run through the app and have a play with it and see what happens. I know that we were playing when we used it yesterday for the day before for the first time. We had some issues with the natural language when I was typing in. I want to create I think it was my rent something. It was using a regular expression-based natural language parsing, looking for keywords. And I said, no, that should have all been AI-based. So it's gone off and done that. We haven't looked at it since then. So let's log in over here. Welcome to the dashboard. So one thing I do want to do is when you log in for the first time, it takes you through an onboarding. Maybe we need a way to do the headings weren't working before either. So let's just double check all caches are cleared and containers restarted. I'm not seeing headers on non-dashboard pages. And there's got to be a... Where's my user settings? Is there a user settings? Is there a user settings area I'd like to opt to restart the onboarding? Do I want to opt to restart the onboarding? Because if I've already done the onboarding, I want to opt to restart the onboarding because it didn't work for me because it was still like we're in development. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, is there a user settings area? Because I also need to change my password. I don't see that. All right, let's let that go in the background. I've used 76%, my weekly limit. I was thinking to myself, I started to, oh, I'm on 0%, but we have got some extra usage here then that apparently has somehow, I didn't enable this. I think you have to type in, you have to enable extra usage. Somehow it's enabled itself. That's interesting. As I've noticed that when you start, it does say it was there for a second. No, sorry, there you go. 50%, $50 free extra usage. Try fast mode when you hit a limit. Type in extra usage to enable. I've never actually enabled extra usage, and yet for some reason I'm going through that $50 that was gifted. Resets on the 1st of March, so I probably want to use it soon enough anyway. There's my current balance. If we look at my main Claude, the hackathon gave everybody 500. So apparently I've been using the 500, some of the $500 worth of credits, which expire on February 24th, which is fair enough, because it's just for the hackathon. But apparently I've been going through that, and I didn't realize. I'm not bothered overly by it because it was free and it's for the hackathon. But I'm interested about the visibility of this happening. Oh, you know what's probably happened? This usage will actually be me using the app. And some other projects that I'm working on as well. So if we look at my brain going blind already, where's usage? There's the keys. There we go, usage. So yesterday I used 100,000 tokens on a variety of things. Yesterday I was having fun. Let me just go on a side tangent for a second. I was using Claude on my phone. And let me just pull the code project up over here if I can. You going to load? Here we go. So I was using Claude on my phone because I had this idea. True Colors. The idea behind it is it's a web app that shows election maps with proportionally colored dots instead of winner takes all fills. The goal is to make political maps honest by showing every vote, not just the winners. Still a work in progress, but what I did to generate this was I created a GitHub repository, which I had to do through, on my phone, I had to do through the web app, which was annoying. The GitHub mobile app doesn't allow you to do it, and it would have been nice because you can connect your GitHub repository. Interesting. You can connect your GitHub repository up into the code section of the Claude app. It would have been nice if I could have created the repository that way. You can't, so I did it through the web, the website, basically, the GitHub website. And then I also set up an auto deploy on Netlify, and then I just walked away from both of those sites. And then I'm just coding through this interface here. And every time I ask it to make a change, it comes through, and at some point it'll say, cool, I've deployed that. So while typing on my phone, I can wait a minute or so after the last message from Claude, and it will True Colors Netlify.app, and it built this tool, which I haven't seen on a desktop yet. So this will be fun. So it plots on a map. It's pulling on all of the voter data from third-party APIs, and it plots on a map how people voted over time. And then you can go through and see how that changed over time as well. You can see it in different formats. So maybe you want pie charts where the size of the pie chart is by population. You've got the original classic way that everybody sees the maps that makes it look like the rural voting areas, which are larger, lower population density, have an outsized representation visually, but not in the total counts. So yeah, I was working on this yesterday, and it looks like that took 100,000 tokens. Something took 100,000 tokens. I'm at another time. I think I'm going to dig in and find out where that went, because thinking about it, this here should have been using my subscription. I don't know. Anyway, that's not relevant to the hackathon. So let's close that. We'll come back over here. Right, so the first thing I tried the other day was I get 1,000, no, add my rent of $1,000 a month. AI features require an API key. You can still use the app normally. Okay, so we need to add an API key in, which I thought we had. That's true. Let's restart, because I don't know whether that's been fed in to you can go away, we don't need you anymore. Yeah, go away. This is where we were conversing. So let's actually just exit Claude here as well. You can go away, and this is an old Claude that I was running on from my phone via Happy. So if we do take the dev server down. I don't know why it needs. It's evaluating my .env file for taking stuff down as well as putting stuff up. I'm quite sure it doesn't need that, but I'll have a look at that script another time. It's no harm. So let's now do a dev up, and it's remembered by fingerprint. So hopefully now we should be passing. Actually, one thing we should check, I think it did it yesterday when we were looking at it, with the Anthropic API key, we need to make sure it's actually being sent into the web app, into this one. So we've got the database, we've got the web app, and we're not sending the Anthropic key in. Are we sending the .env file? We're not sending the .env file either. So that's it's sending into, oh, I think I've just worked out where tokens were going. I think Claude Ralph in a loop is supposed to use the auth token if available, otherwise fall back to the Anthropic key. I don't want it to have the Anthropic key, but I need the web to have the Anthropic key. The database doesn't access any AI services. So if I save that and then we restart this, just make sure everything's down properly, and then start it up again. Now the Anthropic key should go into the web container, and the web container can then, or the web app can then connect to Anthropic. So this is it downloading Playwright, which is used to do like web-based checking the UI to make sure that it's happy the way it looks. Part of the way that we do the testing. And it's quite large. It's basically downloading, yeah, there we go, the Chromium headless shell. So it's downloading a headless browser and then a whole lot of scripting stuff that allows you to write tests that can actually look at a website, as opposed to just looking at the DOM or the code underneath it. You can look at the visual representation of a website, which is useful for automated testing. And I'm trying to get to the point where if I can build things by only writing specs and never having to debug stuff. I mean, the never having to debug stuff is a bit of a unicorn wish, but I don't want to have Claude build an app for me that when I then go to it has obvious visual flaws, or like there's no login button, or it can't interact with things. So if I can get it to do the first pass user experience testing for me, then it's going to make my life easier. It looks like that's up and running now. So let's open Claude over here. We'll refresh this page. And now let's see if the headers are still not staying in place. It's annoying. But let's try our AI thing again. Add my monthly rent of $1,000. You can still use the app normally. Well, obviously you can't. AI feature requires an API key. Okay. When I add something in the AI chat, I get this. I've made sure why is it put it back down? Oh, you know why it's put it back down there? Because I'm using dev ports. So it rebuilds this file. Dev ports is a tool that I wrote which allows you to do things like placeholders in environment files and configuration files. So in this case here, dev ports defines the Postgres port that we use for our database. And then when it compiles it or renders it, it will then replace that with the actual port that we've defined in dev ports. I can talk about that more if you want. Let me know. But what that means is that this Anthropic key that was down there, I've done the same wrong keyboard combination again. There we go. Should be up here. If we save that and then restart again, I think I can run. I should be able to run compose up with, I think it's -D for detached mode. So if I do, it should be down already. And then we do that, should put it to detached mode so we get our command line back. Alright, so now if I refresh, maybe this time it'll work. Add my $1,000 a month rent. But one of the issues we had when we were trying it yesterday, that was starting to do better, is that I had to write it in the correct way, otherwise it didn't pick things up. Okay, so there's a new obligation, name as rent, amount is $1,000, recurs every month. Yep. Okay, if I refresh, there we go. So now, basically going to be stepping through. I don't need to do that anymore because I worked it out myself. After adding an obligation or income from the AI chat, the dashboard doesn't update. I have to refresh manually. I'm starting to go into implementation. I was going to say implement some kind of live updating mechanism to run, but Claude can work it out. Claude's clever enough. While that's going, I'm also going to say the header and footer are still not appearing on non-dashboard pages. It had concluded yesterday when we told it that. I don't know why it hadn't fixed it yet. That if we look in the logs, specs, there we go. If we look in here, the way that it had structured this is that maybe in app, yes, we've got the dashboard in app, and I think the layout, we've got the nav and the AI bar in the layout here, but because these folders here, if you're not familiar with the way React routing works, essentially this part in brackets is like a grouping of pages. So dashboard is rendered as an app group, whereas these down here aren't in a group, so they take the default, which has a different layout down here, which doesn't include the header and footer. So it's just that all of these pages here probably just need to move into that folder, and that'll probably fix it. But I don't want to do that because, first of all, just dragging and dropping will probably break it. The header and footer are still not appearing. Oh, okay, that was me. So here's our fund projection. We're starting at a zero balance, and we can see that we need to be saving up this amount every month in order to be able to get. So we're basically going to be 4.5K in the red by August. So we haven't talked to it about the user interface. We've mentioned the things we want to see. But we haven't said how we want to go about this. So we've added some things in now. It's detected that we need to put in $100, set aside $100 for rent by 2 days' time. No, a month and 2 days' time. So this doesn't look very useful at the moment. If I'm adding $100 a month, that's not going to cover my rent every month. So this here presumably is $0 projected balance, and there's projected balance of $600. It's wanting me to put in so it's having us pay it off at $100 per week. Okay, so the rent is going to be on that day. We need to pay this by the 17th. Next action, $100. I'm not sure this makes sense, so we're going to have to start asking Claude why this makes sense to it. But let's solve these first two problems first. Find directories containing pages. Yes. Found the root cause of the dashboard refresh bug. Let me know. Let me now read the key files to implement. One thing I want to make sure is in Claude, do we have a requirement to update the specs? We do not. Must have been doing that on another project. So make sure Claude instructs you to keep specs updated as we perform ad hoc changes. And it should be specs. Do I want to change? Yes. Keep specs, tests, and other docs updated as we perform ad hoc changes. I don't know what that just asked me to do. It was probably, let's put on accept changes on. It would have been this change, so we're using a callback. That can go away. So if we have a look in here now, we can see the Anthropic key has remained in the YAML file. So that, oh, of course we know the AI works because I put it in here. So I'm going to start stacking up a few other things. Let's just take a screenshot of this and see how well. Do I want to just do a TypeScript checking? Yes. I should have done always do this. All 5 directories need to move. All 5 directories. Oh, it'll be talking about it. There you go. It's starting to move these around. So the things that are not moving are reset password. I guess that makes sense. Login and reset password wouldn't have and sign up wouldn't have the header. I don't know. Maybe we'll see how that feels. API obviously doesn't need it. Components context are all non-primary displaying stuff. Onboarding stuff, I guess, because during the onboarding process, you're not going to want to then jump somewhere else just yet. Do I want to delete types and rerun stuff? Yep. One of the things that I like on Happy, which is the mobile app that I use that wraps Claude, is that there's a YOLO mode. So even questions like this one where you can say don't ask again, you can just say never ask me any questions. I guess it's the same as dangerously skip permissions in Claude, but you can enable it halfway through a conversation. So at this point here, I might want to say, you know what, just do whatever it is you want to do, and then we'll have a look at it at the end rather than prompting me all the time. Do I want to be able to run things inside Composer in Docker containers? Yes. Hey NB, I am trying to build, essentially, well, if I log out, it'll give us a nice little description. I'm working on the Anthropic Hackathon. It's basically a sinking fund planner. So the idea is I know that I'm going to have rent every month and I'm going to be having to take my car for a service every year, and I get income every now and then, and planning all of this out, I know that there's going to be expenses in the future, but it's really hard for us to plan for some of those ones, especially the big ones. So the idea with this is tracking your income and expenses over time, and then working out if you had a separate sinking fund where all of your anticipated future bills came out of, whether that's like $10 a month for a streaming subscription service or $600 roughly per year for your car or whatever it is, that you've always got the money there to cover you. Which also then means that as long as you're keeping that sinking fund correctly funded, then you know that any other money you've got is disposable. Not necessarily fully disposable, like you still want to do savings and all of those kind of things, but you'll never be in a position where you're looking in your account and thinking, if I buy this coffee, will I be able to make my rent? Like those questions should never come up anymore. So just helping people manage money a bit better. It's a tool that I could have done with 20 years ago. Nowadays I do that regularly, but I use a lot of spreadsheets, and it'd be nice to have a tool that makes it easy. It will be open source. It's one of the requirements for the hackathon, and you can actually see the code right based right here, and it's also currently hosted at this. Now this is an older version I haven't pushed for a while, and also this is a version that's currently heavily under deployment. So take that with many pinches of salt. But yeah, you can follow along with the code at that point there. And then of course, because it's open source, if you want to host your own, it's easier for you to be more confident, feel secure in where your data is, rather than storing it in my Postgres database. If I was to take this beyond the hackathon, I would probably add things like encryption to the data and all of those kind of things. The data doesn't need to be read unless you're logged in. It's not like it's doing stuff in the background. I suppose, no, there's really nothing. You would have to go in and tell it that your rent has changed or that you've got a new expense. This doesn't connect to bank accounts. I suppose in one future version it could connect to bank accounts, and at that point you could have background processing that pulls in updated records and lets you know it looks like you're going to miss the bar on making payments. But for now, it's very much just say you put your data in, it tells you what you should be doing in big air quotes, and then you can marry that up with your actual bank account. So really only needs to have access to the data while you're logged in. So encrypting all the data would be and then using a per user encryption key would be a good way of keeping that more secure. Currently, we're trying to go through a few debugging issues. We had we've gotten the AI assistant to work, so I can use natural language to enter things. And I said add my rent of $1,000 per month, and it's added in. So we can see starting balance of 0, our rent is now at minus 1,000, and then we're topping it up. So ideally, what's going to happen is that the tool will suggest that you should ideally, if you've got $1,000, put it into this account, And then you should add, if you get paid twice a month, for example, you should add $500 a month into this account on every paycheck. So it'll help you plan for those kind of things. Obviously, it's not doing that at the moment. It has fixed the header and footer. So the header and footer were missing because on these pages, because it had gotten the directory locations wrong for where to put these. We've got some transactions. We don't have any transactions yet. We can see our rent here, $1,000 a month. It's due on the 15th of February. If I edit this, I can change the due date and stuff, but also I should be able to. I need a cancel button. I can add a price change, and I think this should be. Okay, let's use the sparkle button. So let's say that my rent is actually due on the 28th of February. So what do I want to change? It's due on the 28th of the month. Let's see if it manages to update that. It does not. It knows that I want to edit. So let's where do we want to start? When editing the only obligation, $1,000 rent, and using the sparkle, it decided to call this a sparkle. So I'm just going to carry on calling that. Using the sparkle, saying this is due on the 28th. Nothing changes. It does detect that we want to do a change. The only thing that happens is it comes in here and says edit rent. It just notes edit rent in the modal. So I'm going to start keeping a log over here of the things we saw. We did notice when we were doing the specs that it had decided that we were going to do, I think it was going to base it on 30 days per month, which meant that after 30 months you would get an extra month. So if a monthly cycle was counted as 30 days, then eventually you'll get to the point where it will think you have one more payment owing than you actually do, which is a better situation to be in than the other way around, where you're 1 month short. And I guess maybe it's a way of saving up for extras or something. I don't know. Anyway, the other thing we found was when I edit an obligation, there's no back or cancel button. We can add a hypothetical obligation, and the idea behind this is if we create this, I wonder whether I can add a hypothetical obligation through AI. But the idea is if you add a hypothetical obligation, then when you look at your dashboard, you should see a hypothetical dotted line version here. So let's give that a try. In fact, let's put it in here. Add a hypothetical Netflix subscription of $20. Oh, put in a hypothetical. Lovely. If we look at the dashboard now, we have a dotted line which very closely follows, probably because actually that looks like it's exactly on. So we're going to have to do some, yeah, that scenario should not be the same unless it's changing the scenario of how much I'm supposed to be putting in. But it doesn't really tell me. Yeah, the what if scenario now. Oh, so that should really go up. And it doesn't tell me how often I need to do that. But if I apply this, it'll create a new obligation. That's actually pretty cool. Didn't ask for any of these, but that should now be an actual obligation, but it's not showing up. Interesting. to do that, then that should be an actual obligation, which shows up when I hit refresh. And now these values change. We've now got net rent and Netflix in there. Let's add an income source. Interestingly, I said on the first of the month, but it doesn't specify it here. What's it going to do? We had a refresh issue on the dashboard. It looks like a refresh issue exists on these pages as well. Although this is the add button. We would need to cancel there. If we look at the incomes now, we've got $4 a month, $4,000 a month. Next expected date, interesting. What's going on in the background? So it's making all those changes. It's adding the same for the income. So this is the cancel button that I was asking for. We'll have a look at the import in a second. So last session as well, we were creating some import, some sample data, and we ended up creating a whole lot of PDFs, which aren't rendering as PDFs here, but they do render as PDFs in. If I reveal in Finder, there we go. So we had all these PDFs created. And we were voyeuristically looking at fake financial data of people that we just made up. It's always fun. Let's do the final validation. All right, let's carry on doing some debugging in the front here. So, actually, let me just get that up so that we can get that in the screenshot as well. And let's describe what's concerning us. This is the dashboard after adding in 1,000 rent and was the 20 bucks, wasn't it? 20 bucks Netflix. The next action is to add $100, but that won't cover this. Upcoming obligations show nothing, even though at least one of those one of rent or Netflix should likely appear. I'm wondering whether it's the issue that there are it's 28 days in February, so it's definitely something due in it's set the rent for the 17th of March, which is 30 days from today. So it's probably not counting that. Maybe we need that to be like the next 45 days just to catch things that come up in a month. Maybe we need a toggle there. Maybe we can default to 45 days and offer 15, 30, 90. Fund of Health ungrouped. That's right, we've got groupings. I don't know how we group things yet. So the idea is that every expense becomes its own projection, and then you can group them together. So you can say, well, I want everything in one sinking fund, or I've got one sinking fund for rent and the other one for everything else. So you can group them. But I don't know where you group them yet. So we don't see any transactions in the system. Maybe we should. It supports CSV and OFX. We specified PDF, and I'm pretty sure it wrote PDF code as well. Do we support PDF. Just make sure it's doing things. The AI actions actually execute. This is due on the 28th. Change. The intent was passed but never sent to the API preview for confirmation. So it now opens the API preview for confirmation. Of course, it's also in active development, so it's broken. So Sparkle button should be fixed. Back cancel button, we've seen it created. Upcoming obligations filter is a strict 30-day window, and with today being 15th, rent due on the 17th right now is boundary. I'll change the default to 45 and add the filter buttons you suggested. Make sure you keep the specs, tests, docs up to date with our ad hoc changes. I don't want to get to a point where in the future we then start a Ralph loop again and it starts undoing some of the changes because they weren't in the specifications. It looks like we've got an end of file issue. This is a TurboPack issue, upcoming obligations. If we open that file as the regular one and just hit save, then TurboPack will refresh. If we come back to obligations, and our month was due on the 28th, right? So we just say due 28th. So next due date 28th, changes, confirm. So this one hasn't changed. If we come to income, if I change this one, deposited first of every month. As you mentioned, deposited first of every month. Are you trying to set the deposit date for your existing monthly income, create a new income, or something else? Update existing to first of month. Changes, next due date, 1st of March. Yes. I like that on obligations, I can see when things are due. I can't on the income. So I'm going to add that in. Oh, wrong file. I can see next due dates in obligations list. Can we do the same in income list? Dashboard now, we've got our rent coming up. We're unfunded because we don't have enough money. That's correct. So now we've got these extra. Okay, so this is kind of cool. So that we can see, if we zoom in here, that the value is going up somewhat steadily. It's a bit tricky because this is done with a bendy line as opposed to, straight between dots. But we can see a bit of a drop. You can see the blue kind of drops there a little, and that would be the Netflix coming out. Okay, so the red dots are crunch points. We're going to have to make a payment on that day. We don't have the money, so it's red. The rent comes out here, and that's the crunch point. The rent is the red. Okay, so the dot is on the drop, not on the previous value. Let's see if income's updated. All tests pass, upcoming obligations, PDF support is enabled. UI wasn't accepting PDFs, now the import page onboarding will accept PDFs as well. Income list, next expected date, specs test, and what happened to my question about the due date? You can see the next due date in the obligation list, and do the same in the income. Is it thinking I was talking about a different list? Let me handle the income next expected date request. Current income page and the obligation page. Interesting, the income page already has the code to show the next expected date. The field just might be null for your income sources. Let me verify. The field is already there. The income page, these lines renders is just that your income source was likely created without a next expected value, so it shows null. But if we edit this, we don't have a next expected. Okay. I used the income Sparkle to set the next pay date as the first of the month. The dialogue interpreted correctly and told me it would set the next pay to be March 1st, but I see that's not saved properly. And then import, we now have PDF. So let's come in here and we will go to projects, budget tracker, sample data. Let's grab one of Arthur's statements. Let's go for, should have probably given this a better naming convention. Let's go for January. Internal server error. Excellent. I just uploaded January, Arthur's January statement, and the web app showed internal server error. Edit field only has next due date, and build update body sets next due date to the API files, but the income source expects the next expected date, not next due date, so the data is sent into the wrong field name and is silently ignored. So that looks like that's now been fixed. So let's try that again. Income is on the 1st of the month. Next date is the 3rd. There we go. Now it says next is 20th of February. If I refresh. So I think this might probably going to be a time zone issue, because it's going to have set it probably, let's say, the 3rd of midnight on the 1st of March UTC, but I'm displaying it in Central Time. I'm guessing that's probably what it is. Yeah, sure, you can do that. I set the income to would I want I always get confused whether I should use US or other date formats. I'll just say March 1st. I set the income to March 1st. The modal said March 1st. The what's the next in the list shows Feb 28th. This is probably a time zone issue. I'm CST. Data in DB is maybe UTC. Yeah, I don't know why we're using Opus for statement, but thank you for spotting that. We should probably do a model review. I don't think we need to be using Opus really for much of what the app does. Opus is amazing at coding and coming up with complex things. What we're doing is mainly replacing it's not really complex to parse a PDF or to work to infer from natural language what somebody's trying to do with changing how often their rent goes out or those kind of things. So for those things, I think Sonnet's going to be fine. In fact, for some of them, maybe even Haiku, which is a lot more semantic, faster, very cheap, but basic model capabilities. Maybe Haiku will work for some of them, but I think for most of what we're doing, Sonnet's going to be fine. Oh, look at that. The issue is time zones. If we refresh now, it says 1st of March. Excellent. So this is coming together. I still don't know. Let's see if there's been any conversation about what's going on with the dashboard. Maybe it'll be even further back. it was after we mentioned that part. Let me just ask, did we discuss the dashboard graph and next action not being representative of the rent and Netflix obligations? Let's try importing that PDF again. Internal server error. Just do a hard refresh. Although it's back-end, so I don't know what difference that would make. You mentioned it alongside the upcoming obligation issue, but I only fixed the upcoming filter. I didn't dig into the engine calculation. Let me investigate it. Investigate why it's showing $100 as the next action when you have $1,020 in obligations. We also need to ask about the ability to put in a lump sum to catch up. Do we want maybe like a slider, like from 0 to the minimum you need, which would be $1,020 in this case? From 0 to 1,020, how much can you put in? No, there's going to be a minimum. Like, looking at this here, if we got paid twice a month, for example, then we would get this February, March. So here's like the half. I don't understand. It's February, March, April, May, June, July, August. I think it's getting confused with the x-axis. Okay. We didn't address it. Here's what's happening. $100 is not a bug, as the engine's contribution per cycle calculation remaining needed over cycles until due. So if rent is due in 10 pay cycles, at a 30-day contribution cycle, it says set aside 100. However, the presentation is confusing because the hero card just says set aside $100 for rent. It doesn't explain there's a periodic contribution, not the full amount. The graph shows the balance going deeply negative, which is alarming but technically correct. There is no context about the total obligation amount or how many cycles remain. This is more of a UX question. To improve the hero card messaging, show $100 per cycle towards $1,000 rent. But that means a cycle is 3 days. That doesn't make sense. In your example, the cycle would have to be every 3 days for 100 to turn into 1,000. 10 contributions in 30 days. So that doesn't make sense. The contribution should be per pay cycle, which we can not infer, but we can calculate, I guess. Calculate from our income data. But we should also allow the user to switch to 15 day, 1 month, 3 month. Maybe would 3 months be useful for like long-term? No, 15 day or 1 month cycles. Thing is, we might also have a situation where somebody's only on ad hoc pay. So in fact, we want a 1 week, 2 week, and 1 month cycle. So people usually get paid weekly twice a month, not every 2 weeks. 0.5 month, maybe, and we can let Claude work out how it wants to represent those. Math is off, really. If rent is due in 30 days and the cycle is 30 days, that's one cycle, so it should say $1,000, not 100. Correct. 100 means the engine thinks there are 10 cycles, which implies a 3-day cycle. That's exactly what I just told you. Let me check what is actually configured. All right. Meanwhile, let's go through. We haven't pulled. We still had an error message. It hasn't detected any patterns, which is usually based on importing statements. So we were having issues with the PDF. Let me just switch over to Elton, and we will try Elton's January CSV. Transactions found, imported. Okay, so now if we bring the same one in again, it should import. It skipped all of them. Great. Can I upload February and March? No, I want to do multi-select. Allow multi-file select in statement imports. But now if I look over in transactions, we can see the transactions in there. And if we look at suggestions, no suggestions yet. So we are going to be Elton for these tests, and we will have a look at the PDF issue later. Can I drop multiple files? I'm guessing if it won't allow me to select multiple files, it won't allow me to drag multiples. It does. No, that was just February. And if I do February again, so there we go. There you go. It skipped all of those. Yeah, we want multiple file uploads. There it is. So how are we going here? It's got the full picture. The user contribution cycle days is null. The user never set it. Okay. Line 170, I don't know where we would set it. Do we have a user settings area for defaults and preferences? Also need, just doing a compaction. Also need to edit profile, email, password, etc. I might need to get another coffee in a second. Do we have a sewer? I'm glad that Claude is good at understanding what my intent is. Good findings on the engine. I'll circle back to the contribution cycle discussion, but let me address your 2 new requests first. Let me check for existing setting pages and then implement a multi-file import. Okay. This is probably going to take a couple of minutes while it just whirs in the background. So I am going to go grab myself another coffee, and I'll be back in a few minutes. I was going to switch to like my coffee screen, which looks a little bit like, and makes the music a little louder. But what I might do, or do I want to proceed, is I was going to leave this so that you could just watch it whir away, but I will do that. I don't need you to ask me again for cat commands. And if it stops again in a second, then you can just watch a frozen screen for a bit. But I'll be back, and I will just, for your edification, turn the music up a little. Woo! Finished. Down to there again. Alright. All 11 tests passed. Let me address your settings question. What else did it do? Lots of coding, lots of coding. From multi-file, we got that part. Let me run type check. Alright, so the user model has currency symbol, contribution cycle days, and maximum contribution per cycle. These are only set during onboarding and can't be changed later. I think that's something we should be able to change. There we go. Here's something that should be spec'd out. A settings page would cover profile, email, change password, currency symbol, contribution cycle, weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. Oh, hiccups. Max contribution per cycle. Most people are paid weekly, twice monthly, or monthly, not fortnightly. Fortnightly is still a possibility. I did have a contract once that was fortnightly. 26 payments a year instead of 24. It's actually pretty common in Australia. I'm not sure about the US. All my jobs here so far have been monthly. Or twice monthly. Let's do weekly, fortnightly, twice monthly, or monthly. How can we neatly deal with fortnightly versus twice monthly? What else does it ask? We'll say the settings page user configure their pay cycle. Do you want me to write a spec for a settings page? It could also be where we expose the lump sum contribution feature. Yes, we need a settings page spec. All right. Let's just spec that. The reason why I paused for a second is I'm also thinking I don't know that we've got a password reset. Oh, we do have a password reset. How does it do it? Because we haven't configured email. If an account without email exists, a reset link has been sent. Why do I not believe you? Do I have an email? If it's managed to magically work out how to send me an email, I will be impressed and concerned at the same time. Doesn't look like anything's coming through. How are you sending emails for forgotten password? Do we have welcome emails set up too? What about email verification? I don't know how important email verification is because we're not sending emails regularly. It's either going to be a welcome and then a password reset. It's not like we're sending them notifications that could become annoying. Although it's always best practice. What about email verification? Do we even need it? We'll leave it at that. Let me check whether it's been looking at. Distinctions are fortnightly is 40 days, 2026 pay periods. Twice monthly is 24 pay periods. For the engine's contribution cycle math, fortnightly is simple, yes. Twice monthly is trickier because the intervals alternate, yes. Pragmatic approach, map twice monthly to 15 days. The error is at most 1 day per cycle, negligible for budgeting. This keeps the engine's inter-cycle days model working without needing a calendar-aware date counter. We just need to add twice monthly as a frequency option. I don't know how I feel about that. Let me check the existing specs. I'm going to push back. I'm going to say, do some research into the actual side effects of this approach. I don't like the idea of being slightly off, and over the course of a year the contributions might not add up to enough. Yes, you can search for those kind of things. I'm also concerned about date issues, like what happens if something is due on the 30th of the month. What happens in February? Looking for tokens and stuff to do with email still. That's fine. See, worst case scenario, if we budget for 26 contributions, but we only have to make 24. No, if we're getting 26 pay cycles in, if the system thinks we're getting 20, no. Yeah, if we are actually getting 24 in, but the system thinks we're getting like 24 and a half or 25 because we do the 15 day, then it's going to think we're getting more money in than we actually are. And that's not a good thing. So for the worst case scenario, I would want to say if you get it twice a month, then you should select 14 days. Because then if you get it every 14 days, then it's 14. Do you know what I mean? Let's just ask the question. We can go from there. How password emails work and whether we have welcome emails or verification. Still looking for that stuff. Do we have anything over here that we can test in the meanwhile? Let's get back in here. Go away. Upcoming obligations. So in the 15 days, 28th of February is 15 days away. I know that within 90 days I should have more than one rent due. Let's do a refresh. Now we are looking for more email stuff. I'm going to see what happens if we have multiple Claudes at the same time working on the same code. It's something I haven't tried other than like the Ralph loop that just goes over and over again. Can I come in here and say, okay, well this one's going to be about the upcoming obligations. Upcoming obligations on the dashboard don't show the same obligation more than once, or even if it should. For example, monthly rent should show 2 or 3 times in the 90-day view. You go and have a look at that one. Meanwhile, we'll come back to this one that's doing the email stuff. Still investigating email stuff. And also we had a secondary question in there about this one here, which I'll keep in this. I was just thinking I could just copy and paste that into another Claude again, but there's some context in here already about this, so I'm going to keep this one here. It'll finish the email investigation soon. Meanwhile, we're also looking at other code at the same time in another tab. The issue component fetches obligations which return obligations with a single next due date for 90-day windows. Monthly rent should appear about 3 times. The code never generates future references. I don't want to talk to it specifically about implementation, but in my mind I was thinking it would probably have a function or like a tool that it can use that would take an obligation and then extrapolate out over a certain time period. So hopefully it does something along those lines. Meanwhile here we've got email status. No email infrastructure exists. Password reset generates a token and logs the reset link to console in dev. No actual email is sent. No welcome emails. No email verification. The sign-up flow immediately authenticates the user. Alright, so I tend to use, let me just open this in another screen for now. There's a I forgot what it's called now. There's a tool that I use. I send it to the cloud. It's like mail trap maybe. Or was that the local? No, there's a local one called Mailtrap, but there's a hosted one. No, it's Mailtrap. Mailtrap.io. I think I have an account. I should have an account. Log in here. Verification code. Sent by email. Verify. So we'll keep this conversation going on over here. This one wants to change. Or is that this one? Do I want to change this file in upcoming obligations? Yeah, I'm just trusting you now, Claude. That's the idea of this hackathon, is to see how much we can get away with not even looking at the code. So I'm going to start another one over here. I'm going to say implement mailtrap.io integration for all email flows. Make sure we have a welcome email and a password reset email. Anything else? I will create a sandbox. Huh. I've just logged in. I've seen that over the last few days I've been getting emails from another project that I've been working on, which is fun. Anyway, that's besides the point. Let's create a new project, and this project is going to be called Budget Tracker. Reach the project limit. That's because I'm on the free account. Okay, well, I'll just use my normal one. I'll add a new sandbox called Budget Tracker, unless I can only have one sandbox. I've reached the maximum number of sandboxes. All right, well, I'll just use the sandbox I already have. So I need my settings, API settings. Or I can just use their SMTP service. That'd be easier. So let's come into 1Password, and what I'll do is I'll create a new item. And now I want to see whether I can share this with you without giving away too much of my other stuff. There's API credentials. There's API credentials. Can I bring just this over? I can't. But if I resize this window, I should be able to. Is there anything here that I can't share? I don't think so. No, better not. What I will do, I'm just gonna hard code all of the stuff that I can, and I'll paste the password in off screen. Use node mailer and these SMTP details. Don't know why that's 6 lines. Actually, it could be. Yeah, it's probably right. And then I'll say username, then password, foobar, and then the other information that it needs. Put these in .env devports, and I'll fix the username and password to be correct afterwards. All right, so it's going, there we go, that's why it was 6, because that's 3 lines, whereas I copied 1. So we've got the host, the port, username, all of these settings here. Meanwhile, in 1Password over here, I'm going to create a new API credentials called budget tracker dev. And in here, I'm going to have the mail trap username, which will be this value. Actually, that's a string. Let's get rid of all of these and we'll add a password field, which is mail trap username, and another password field called mail trap password, and the password is this, and then I can save that. So now what I can do is I will take a screenshot of this just so I can share that with you. If I open preview. All right, so just so you can see what I can see in my 1Password, this is basically the right-hand side of the panel. On the left-hand side here is a list of all of my things. I've created a new entry called budget tracker dev. It's of type API, and I've got 2 values defined in there, the mailtrap username and the mailtrap password. Now, if you click on the down arrow on the right, you can copy the secret reference. And if I actually click on that, then what happens is, let's come into the, where do we go, env dev ports. So it hasn't added them yet, but like this here is a 1Password secret reference. So I can then paste that in once this is done doing its job. It should add the session environment keys here that it needs, because I've asked them to put it into env ports. And then when I restart the application, also remember to add the env vars to composer, not composer, Docker files. Then we should be able to restart, and then the emails should work, and then they'll show up on my screen over here. Twice monthly approach. Instead of the 15-day approximation, the engine will count actual pay date occurrences between now and their due date, given pay days like 1/15. It's exact, no drift, no loss, correct. It's 01 with a closed form formula. End of month clamping handles the 30th in February, 31st in April cases. Standard financial end of month rule, clamp to the last day of the month. Weekly, fortnightly still use simple day division. The lump sum catch feature will still need its own spec. Catch-up feature. Do you want me to write that for you? So what actually needs to be, it's written the spec for settings, twice month frequency, and cycle auto detection. Yes, write the catch-up feature. So with these specs, what we'll do in a second is we'll start a Ralph loop and we'll let it develop all of these. Meanwhile, over here we were looking at the upcoming obligations not showing multiple things. Do I want to make this change? Yes. And our email stuff, got so many things going on now. It's exciting. So, SMTP host port user. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to edit this one. I'm going to change mailtrap to SMTP underscore. So mailtrap SMTP user and SMTP pass, so that they match what the application expects. And now, clear context, do it. So this is now going off and doing a largish change. One of the things I like about Claude 4.6, it might have been around in 4.5 as well, but I've been noticing a lot more in 4.6, is it'll build up this plan, but then it finishes the here's the plan with, do you want me to set this plan in motion after I've cleared the context? So it's starting the context afresh. So in a way, a mild way, this is almost like a Ralph loop, except there's no loop. There is a Ralph loop plugin for Claude, which I haven't played with since they first released it, because at the time they weren't clearing the context. I don't know whether that extension will forcefully clear the context every time. But if it does, then that means the Ralph loop is somewhat possible in Claude. My concern with that still is unless you actually go into your own container and run Claude inside there and have the conversation in Claude in the container, it's not running in a container. Whereas the Ralph loop that I'm using starts a container and runs Claude inside the container in a loop, which means that if it does something stupid, it's not going to destroy your desktop or your laptop or your host system. So my only concern with this is, I mean, there's obviously less risk here because we haven't started Claude with dangerously skip permissions, but it does mean that I do have to approve changes every now and then. So it's not completely autonomous. We are ready for a Ralph plan over here. So let's run Ralph plan. So this is now going to take, something's really laggy on my system at the moment. This is now going to take the new specs that we've written over here. So we made changes to the income sources. If I go to this one, then I should be able to see that more easily. Where are you? There we go. Income sources. So we made a change here. Okay, so we added twice monthly. Weekly, quarterly, twice monthly, monthly, quarterly, annual. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. We've added a whole spec on twice monthly income frequency. We've done cycle auto detection. That's a new spec. It's an amendment. We can see here there's an 07A amendment. We've got changes to the dashboard spec, that's what from one of the other things we were doing. We've got a settings page, and now we've got the catch-ups and contributions spec that we were just talking about. So that should now culminate in the generation of a new implementation plan, if we can find that file somewhere, unless it's still working on it. Might still be working on it. We'll have a look at that when that comes through. Force quit application, something's really slow. So what is taking everything? Oh. Code has paused. I don't know how the stream is doing right now. It looks like it's still going. Let's see, I'm going to kill Discord. That can go away. Yeah. Acrobat can go away. I don't know why Acrobat has taken 1.8 gig. That's ridiculous. What else can I close? This can go away. That'll probably clear up quite a few things. Safari is currently running only to run the music in the background, and that's taking up 12 gig of memory to play music. Okay, so can I then resume this now? It's thinking about it. I feel like the system's responsive again now. I don't know why it's not starting up. Something just dinged at me, which means that Claude in the background on one of these two has actually continued. Can I close that? No? Well, isn't this fun? What else can I do? I mean, I just killed many gigabytes of stuff. I could get rid of the music. We don't have to have that right now. Orb Stack is obviously running our containers that we need. OBS is streaming. Loopback I need for audio. LibreOffice, it's only 600 meg, but I can probably just kill that. Brave we need. I mean, one thing I could do is, do I have any other tabs open? I can close all of these tabs. That can close. In fact, that whole window can close. Any other tabs open? No. So that's brought it down to, ooh, say it was 2 gig. But why won't you resume? Well, it looks like Ralph was finished. We heard one ding over here. I get the feeling that this one here is still running. That was the big plan that we ran. And this one over here was just doing the email stuff, which I don't know whether the ding that I heard was it asking me a question or doing something in the background. I mean, rather asking me a question, or if it finished this process. I think I'm just going to have to kill it and start again. All right, so this one over here was running the implementation plan update. What happened there? Did it actually make any changes? Implementation plan. So let's just add this lot down here. So we added in the twice monthly stuff. We got auto. Hello. Did it just... Something just committed this. Which suggests to me that maybe the Ralph loop was still running in the background, even after I killed. You can go away. All right, so maybe running multiples wasn't the greatest idea. Even though I've got 36 gig of RAM, I was kind of hoping it wouldn't completely trash my system. But let's go back in. We have done so after adding the obligation, we got to ready to Ralph plan. We did the Ralph plan there. Let's resume this one. Mail trap integration, it says it's done. Okay. And then the third one was this one, narrow play filter by days. So I'm just going to say continue, so I can carry on from where it left off. Meanwhile, the other two, the implementation plan is done, so we can now run the Ralph build. And the email should be working. So let's have a look at, let's keep this one moving over here. In fact, let me put that into auto accept mode. If we have a look at the env dev ports now, so it's added these in. So now what I can do is jump back in over here, and if I do that copy secret reference location again for username and for the password, I'm going to send it from my email address for now. Then we should be able to hit save, and then we'll come in over here and we'll do a down. Visual Studio Code would like to access data from other apps. Oh, that's what it wants. That's fair. And then we'll do an up D again for detach mode. In fact, I might just go into non-detached mode, because then we might be able to see error messages and stuff coming through. So we'll just do a standard dev start, which should recompile this. Yep, so we've now got that data in the actual end file. And let's see where we are with the what was this thing doing? Upcoming obligations. Do I want to make this change? That's just adding something to the tests. Yep. I think we can close these now to stop ourselves getting confused. Database is ready. I've just realized that we're on the wrong screen here. I think we're on the wrong screen here too. Which screen am I meant to be on? Oh, I know what happened. Because I restarted code. It's opened all of the previous code instances. Maybe that's what was going on, is the other code instances. And then let's come back in over here and we'll grab this one and go back onto desktop 3. All right, some semblance of normality again. We have our renters coming through twice now. That's good. If we go to 90, we get even more. 15 days, we've only got that. Okay, this is starting to feel a bit better. And then let's have a look here. Email stuff is still ongoing. No, this isn't the email stuff. This was the big plan for this stuff here, the next action, and calculating how much we actually owe when and all of those kind of things. So this is, you can run that anytime you like. All right, I feel like we're back on track. I'll probably start the music again as well now. All right. Ten tests pass. There are errors, which are pre-existing errors from the validator, still Next.js build cache referencing deleted files. So the problem was the upcoming obligation component fetched the obligation once from the API with a single next due date and never projected future references. Now we've got future versions. It did mention here, though, that we had a Next.js build cache error. Rebuild all caches. And then we should be able to maybe get better information up here. Build failed due to a missed node mail dependency. Install it then. Why is it trying to do a build? Okay, did the install just there? Now it's doing a build. All right. Middleware convention is deprecated. Please use proxy instead. Why did you not pick up the error? Or am I going blind? Might not be related, but we still don't want to put shitty code out there, do we? I guess I shouldn't complain. One of the issues we've often had with LLMs is their tendency to drift and go off in a direction we weren't intending them to. And now I'm getting annoyed that it's not drifting enough to do the things that I want. Like, ideally, I think we would all like AI that can just read our minds, not in a weird way. And it's always possible to complain about a decision that's made based on LLM output. And I guess that's just human, right? We'll just carry on doing that. Let's run our tests. Oh, so dehydrated today. My nose is really itchy. All tests pass. Clear the cache. Warning's gone. Compiled successfully. Remaining errors are just the expected database URL issue from running outside of Docker. Renamed that. Okay. So now, internal server error. Wonderful. I don't know how much of this is because of the... Maybe it just needs restarting. Let's go for... That looks like the same error there, so we will go from this point here. In fact, I'm going to clear the context and we're going to start with just fix that. Uncommitted changes. Okay. Let's just go back into the previous one again. One back again. That one. There we go. So we've got a whole lot of file changes here. Commit changes for the obligation work we just did. And then what we'll do is we'll commit the change for the middleware/proxy bug that we just had. Hello. Oh, cookies. Thank you. I got cookies. Hey, buddy. Fine, ignore me. I know I'm not your favorite. All right, project recurring obligations. We'll commit that one. Then we're going to commit the change. Apparently, it decided if it was a proxy TS that where the error was. It decided to commit other stuff. Commit includes. Okay. Summarize all other changes and give me a commit strategy. I want to make sure we're committing them in logical blocks so that when we're looking at the history again later, we can kind of work out what was going on where. Some of it's going to be email stuff. Claude MD is probably where I asked it to make sure that it keeps the specs updated, which it isn't always doing, but that's what happens when you've got lots of instructions. It has to pick and choose which one to follow at any particular point in time. What other changes can we see in here? We've got lots of updates across the board. Some of them could be things like the back button. I'm not sure if we got around to committing that work. These Ds and Us are probably like the renaming of a lot of files because we moved them into another directory. PDF fixing. Yeah. I usually try and remember to commit as I go, but I think I just got too excited. And then, of course, we had the 3 Claude tabs going at the same time. All right. Commit strategy. Four commits. Move the files into routes. Yep. Add email module. Dashboard refresh, AI preview modal, PDF onboarding tweaks. Seems a little overloaded, but that's okay. And then use specs for sample data. All right, let's get those committed. So this is just commit work at the moment. So I'm going to jump into another tab over here, and I'm going to run Ralph build, and we'll start building out the changes that we specified. So we'll add those. Now, of course, there's a small chance that some of the work, because Ralph is going to be committing as it goes as well, it's likely we'll get these commits done before Ralph even starts committing, but it might change files. But that's all right. I'm not overly bothered. So now we've got the statements, the specs, which are just about to be committed. Oh, it's going to commit the statements with the specs, looks like. And then we've got the last run JSON test file. What's it going to suggest for that? Likely a get ignored artifact, but it isn't. So it would be easy enough for me to add that into the get ignored file myself, but I'm trying as much as possible. So I'm going to... Excellent. Oh. So now I'm just going to manually commit that. We're getting schema change files coming through, which will be a result of our first Ralph iteration here, with adding twice monthly as an income frequency. My brain is happy that it's in the right order. Twice monthly is slightly longer than fortnightly, so it's in the right place. Good job. Easily pleased. What else do I want to do while we're building? I am going... Oh, there we go. Dashboard's working again. It's quite possible that when the Ralph loop started up, it rebuilt things as a baseline starting point. So, other things I would like to do: transactions, suggestions isn't showing anything, and we're not really working in the suggestions area in the Ralph loop. So let's have a chat with Claude about the suggestions area. Let's talk about the suggestions tab. What's meant to happen here, and when, and how. And I'm going to put that into plan mode because I don't want it to make any changes. 78% my weekly limit. Resets tomorrow at 1 PM, 2 hours before submission deadline. That'll be fun. I just realized my face has disappeared. Why is that? Failed to initialize the Logitech Brio. Looks like something I did. Something obviously happened with the memory overload thing that has stopped my camera from running. But I think the only way for me to fix that is to restart OBS, so I'm not going to do that right now. Let's have a look. How the suggestions work. Trigger. Pattern detection runs automatically after each bank statement. Okay. Detection engine groups transactions. It groups transactions, I guess, by vendor using fuzzy matching. Requires at least 2 transactions per group. For each group, it detects type, amount, frequency, confidence, and then it adds stuff in. I have uploaded 12 months. It wasn't 12 months. I've uploaded. Well, actually, let's give it a chance, because I think we uploaded transactions for February and January, right? And we should now have the ability to import multiple files. So January and February, we should be able to upload all of these now. 667 new transactions. We now have 17 pages of transactions, which means we should be able to get some suggestions. So if I refresh, nothing's there. It might be doing something in the background, I'm not sure. I've uploaded a year's worth of CSV transactions, but see nothing in suggestions tab. How's the Ralph loop doing over there? It's on its second loop, and if we have a look at the implementation plan, we've got quite a lot of tasks to get through. I guess we'll just keep an eye on it, see how it goes. It might be that that I stop the stream for a while, we let the implementation plan run its course, and I join again later. Once I finish my camera. Finished? Fixed. Once I fix my camera. Oh. The import page never calls the pattern detect. Of course it doesn't. Why would it do that? It's only wired up in the onboarding upload flow. Simple fix. So it's going to change the import to call patterns detect. It's non-blocking. User already sees their import summary. Suggestions will appear on Suggestions tab as the dashboard nudge cards once detected, and as dashboard nudge cards once detected. Detection completes. No new state or UI is needed. Verification. Run the existing import tests. Add the test case, and then yeah, let's go with that. I think I'm okay for it to do editing on those. It's probably not going to be a huge overlap with what Ralph is working on at the moment. It's basically just changing this one file. You know, I think I can probably copy and paste that into the file faster, but I'm going to let Claude do its job. I think if we can get the suggestions tab working, then I will probably leave the stream at that point and leave Ralph to go in the background. We are now... Let's see what happens if I search for... Not in this one. Over here. There are 29 unticked tasks currently. It generally does one task per... So we've done 3 tasks now. And we have 29 to go, so we're about 1% of the way through, 10% of the way through. And if that's taken us maybe 10-15 minutes, we're probably looking at a few hours here. So, yeah, I don't think I will hold you all on the stream for that. But I would like to get this part working. Insert a mock for the pattern detection called fix assertions. Updating and resolve error test. Is it going to run this for us as well, or are we going to have to do an update? I guess I could just hit that endpoint. I need to send a post to it, presumably with my session. Do we want to go in there and run the tests? Sure we do. Everything passes. Here's what I've done. I've added a fire and forget call. And then, so maybe what I can do is just upload, looks like another TurboPack error. We'll go to import page. I'll just hit save. There we go. So if we now import any of these, it's skipped them all, but now we've got some suggestions. So Selfridges, roughly twice a month, is a medium confidence that we spend $68 to $104. 2 transactions. It'd be nice to see what those transactions are. Low confidence, medium confidence, high confidence, the Eagle. Every month we spend $16 to $45 pounds. Actually, is there a... Oh, the settings page is being built by Ralph. I was going to say, let's change it to pounds, but that's not going to... dry cleaning, we spend a range every month. The laminate flag, we go to the pub regularly. Transfer to savings, $500 a month. Okay, so we could put that in there. We've got our salary, so we can accept that. We can accept this one. It'd be nice if we can sort. Where are we? Update the specs. In fact, I'm going to say add a, or sort suggestions by confidence, and update the specs and implementation plan to show this as done. So what other high confidence do we have? Dry cleaning, laminate flag, pure gym direct debit, $29.99 monthly. We've got direct debit to Octopus Energy, which is somewhere between 70 and 160 pounds a month. Let's accept that. I'm going to be interested to see how it handles these variable things. 3 mobile. Cafe Nero weekly spends between £3.30 and £5.79. I doubt that somehow, because I'm pretty sure the cheapest coffee, unless he's buying like a packet of sugar. And also, why are you only going for 1 coffee a week? You need to drink more coffee than that. Uber trips, irregular. Amazon Prime. Look at these, monthly direct debit, the Times monthly, Starbucks. I see. He's cheating on Starbucks with Cafe Nero. BT broadband, Netflix. I want to see whether this sorting is done yet. If I refresh. It'd be nice to be able to see the most likely ones at the top. Makes sense. Now if we have a look at this is the example one that I added in there, so we can delete that now because that doesn't make sense anymore. Also, I added Netflix at 20. Yes. And I added rent at 1,000. So let's delete those. So these are now based on the actual information from the transactions. So some of them are the what if. Interestingly, some of these are wrapping weirdly. Running some tests. The obligations cards are wrapping their content inconsistently. See location of what if box. So I don't know why they're all in the... To me, that tick box suggests that it's, oh, what if it's a different amount? And then that is enabled, or you can put it into... I'm not quite sure I like that UX. We might work on that later. That's a low priority for me. Obligations, what if checkbox and value is confusing. So look at our suggestions now. These are all sorted. Excellent. We should also sort by range. So the smaller the range, the higher the confidence. I think that makes sense. Let's also, I can see the issue. The what if box and the action buttons are wrapping to a different position on some cards. Let me find the components and styles. Okay. Let's also sort suggestions first by confidence, and then within that by delta of range. Something that's always the same price has higher confidence than something that has a 32 is fine as well, 32% swing. Do I want to run tests? Sure. Did it update the specs? Sorted by confidence, high first, then medium and low, the newest first within each confidence level. Well, that's newest doesn't make sense. Although, do we want to? Oh, we can dismiss them, so that's fine. Like I might look at like dry cleaning. I would say probably want to account for that. Whereas going to the pub, probably not. We can dismiss that. We can dismiss coffees. We can the British Red Cross quarterly. Direct debit. Direct debit. I want to make sure, did I just accidentally? No, we still have a swing in there. So once it's done this, then the Eagle, dry cleaning, coffee should go to the bottom of the high confidence list. Let's run some more tests. Let's come back to with me with... Okay, so this screen should now look better. Obligations, you've got the tick mark on the left on all of them. That's good. Don't like the tick mark, but at least it's consistent now. Suggestions are coming through, and we've got it based on swing, and then we've got the ranges, and then finally we go into medium confidence. So I can say that goes in, that's a direct debit, Spotify, the landlord, $1,800 a month. Coffee, we're going to leave. Dry cleaning, we're going to leave. Although I think I said before that it would probably make sense to keep it in, but anyway. The barbers, it's irregular, but I'm going to accept that because I do need... One thing I wanted as well was to be able to see the transactions. So, let's run some tests. On the suggestions page, I'd like to click on transactions and have them expand below for reference. Is that what I want? I think I do. If they're irregular, I'd like to know the average cadence. 7 times over a year. Every 1.7 months. 1.7 times 4.3 every 7 weeks. Update the specs and docs with ad hoc changes. Update implementation plan with checked off tasks that we've completed. I think we're starting to look pretty good here. We're getting some good suggestions coming through. We're getting the obligations coming in, the income. We do need to clean this up. This doesn't make sense. That still doesn't make sense. That's part of what Ralph is currently working on, which we'll come back to. I think once we've got these suggestions in and easier to use, like I'd like to see what are those 2 transactions, and also like confidence here is high because of the number of transactions, whereas this is twice over a period of 12 months. I feel like that's probably a low confidence, but anyway. Do I want to do this? So we're going to modify the suggestions pages. That's okay. I'm just thinking at the moment, like, what is Ralph working on? Probably not the suggestions pages. It's going to make some changes to tests. That's fine, I think, and then run the tests. Yeah, I think we're good with that. Apparently my flight from Vegas to Seattle is currently coming up. I don't know why. I'm not in Vegas. There we go. Add the toggle, hide, cancel, tweak. Handle, cancel, tweak. Okay. Hey. So presumably it's going to put in some styling for that. We've got the little arrow there which indicates that we can click on it. That's nice. Irregular hasn't been... Oh, there we go. We've got a bit of styling. Approximately... Oh, I like... Okay, that's much more readable. So approximately every 2 months. This one is approximately every 2 months. This one is just twice. Twice at the end of December. It looks almost like I've changed from... I used to buy from somewhere else and now I buy from Selfridges. Cost of coffee is every 2 weeks. Not much of a coffee drinker. He gets... This is obviously the fault of the sample generation, but I don't know why he's getting odd number of pennies out from an ATM every 4 weeks. Yeah, anyway. The Ship Tavern. How are we doing over here? Do we have the... Well, I guess that has been... The irregular now shows up at the... Crikey, that's a lot of transport for London. Every 2 days, on average. Anyway. I think Yep, run some more tests. I think I'm happy with this, so I would be able to come in. Let's just do a refresh, and then I can say the barbers. I'm going to accept Nando's. Interesting, it's always the same amount. No, it's not. Why is that not showing up as a range? Why is this suggested obligation not showing up with a range of price in the header? Because I would imagine it would give the high and the low there in the same way Selfridges is between 68, 68 and 104, 104. So why is this coming up as... Also, why is that twice underscore monthly? And quarterly, quarterly, fortnightly. I feel like that needs to be... Also, 3 lines of text. The twice monthly probably needs a nice display name. Error with tests. So it did already have these, and it must have reverted back to value because there was no label for it, and now we have the label in there, so we should see twice monthly prettily. That's nice. We've got Nando's is still fixed amount. Has it told us why? Interesting. I didn't even notice the time zone issue in the date formatting. But it obviously did from one of the screenshots I sent in. Fixing a cadence, align, add the twice monthly. API just returns whatever's in the database. Now those transactions are these amounts. The coefficient of variation, the mean, which is probably what it showed, 4196, the variance, the standard deviation. Okay, so there's a threshold. Well, that's interesting. We should probably document that somewhere. If the variation is under threshold, can we add a little I on hover to explain? Because that would confuse me. Or we can add a short note in the transaction expansion area. A short note. I believe it suggested this just before I said it, because now it's going to agree. Amounts vary slightly, average shown above. And then here, it doesn't show that. That's cool. Looking at existing works more carefully, as when Netflix has identical amounts, the node won't show. That's ideal. How is... We're down to 25. We were 29 before. Yeah, it's taking a while. I like where we're at with this now. I think we're almost done with this. That's done. We've now got a list of transactions so we can see what's going on. We can see the amounts are varying slightly. I don't want to include food. ATM withdrawal doesn't make sense. Food, boots is like... I do think that this is useful to plan for. I don't know, probably not. I'm suspecting this is a restaurant. I don't actually know what Ottolenghi is. I imagine if my name was Elton, I would know what Ottolenghi is. Food, Amazon and Cody, that's like Tesco, Sainsbury's, W. Smith, Pret, John Lewis, Dishoom. Low confidence. Invalid date. What's going on with invalid date? Maybe that's why it's low confidence, because they don't have dates associated with them. I don't remember if it had this on the others. Should go and play back the video. Did any of them have valid dates? I thought they did. The format transaction date function. Oh, it did make a time zone change recently to the code, so maybe it just introduced an error. Prisma returns a full ISO date like this. Now suggestions page. It's broken again. Suggestions page. Save that. And now we have our dates back. That's good. Okay, I don't know what that is. No food. Not to that. Cafe. Uber trips. I'm assuming they're personal, not work related, because you'd probably have a work expense account. All of these. Cheshire cheese. I appreciate the dedication to cheese. I'm supportive of that. In fact, that should probably be a regular expense. Cheese, I think, should count as a regular expense for sure. Burgers was okay. Cool. We have no new suggestions, which now means we've got a list of all of our obligations. We have a list of our income. There are still 15 suggestions. There we go. Refresh. Let's just do that as one last little thing. I processed all suggestions and the red counter in the menu didn't update in real time. Need to make sure this happens. Update the code and spec and implementation plan. I know I'm not spelling properly. Importmentation plan. It'll do. It knows what I mean. This file can close. This one we can see we're down to 24. This is still going. Iteration 9. That's running the application. This is about to finish. We're probably not going to be able to test it. If I bring them all in again, it should skip them all. Yep. And then I'll go to suggestions. It's added them in again. That's a bit of a bug. If I import all ears, although it's only brought in, does it have? Oh no, it does have. It's only brought in what isn't already an obligation. If I import all ears transactions again, it re-adds all suggestions except those that are already obligation. Is that the intended design? Kind of makes sense, because maybe you're like, "Ugh, I missed something, run it through again." I kind of don't mind it. It also means that I can now test the counter bubble. Decrement when a suggestion is accepted or dismissed. Oh, I have a plan for you, my sweet summer child. What if I decrement in 2 different tabs? Answer me that. We have unexpected into file on providers. App providers. Save. Here we go. So now, if I dismiss this, it goes from 37 down to 36. That's good. Let's open this in a new tab. If I now decrement this one, we go 36, 35, 34, and over here we're still on 36, 35, 34, yes. So, I mean, there is also this bug that failed to dismiss suggestion. I'm a little bit particular about this. I don't know whether I should be. Because now we're getting in the realm of, not only do we want to keep the counter up to date, but should I also remove it from the list if somebody deletes it in another list? This is a single user system. So I'm going to say, if you're going to open it up in 2 tabs and you're going to play in both, you're going to get some errors. At the very least, it's handled. If I dismiss this, it fails. I would probably do a refresh, then I'm back to 31, and this works for me. So I should be able to dismiss all of these, and it will go all the way down to 1. Gone. Lovely. All right, I am good with this. It is updating the implementation plan, the documentation. It's done the code. We're going to run one more test. It's going to be happy. It's going to be happy. Please be happy. It's not happy. Now it's going to tell me that there were pre-existing bugs. Come on, what's gone wrong? 2 failing tests are pre-existing. Thanks. Unrelated to our changes. Here's what's happened. Okay. Commit changes relating to the suggestions work we've been doing. And then we are going in here. That's still going. Back and close. We have 22 left to go. Real-time badge context work. So I'm going to add all of these, which are add context counters real-time badge updates. Yep. Hi, buddy. How you doing? It's now clean. Is it really? It is. That's great. All right, now I'm going to clear the context. I'm going to say run tests. Thinking about it, we know how many tasks there are to run, and we know that there's approximately one iteration per task. The only time that doesn't happen is if the task isn't completed because the iteration gets into it like a dead-end situation, and then it'll update the implementation plan. But every time an iteration starts, we should be able to count how many incomplete tasks there are, so we could put in here iteration 8, approximately n iterations remaining. That'd be a nice little touch. Unrelated to the hackathon, but fun to think about. 22 failures, cycle days not defined. This is probably, let's go into plan mode here. Is this something that Ralph is currently working on? It could be. You know what, I'm going to stop that. We are going to leave this. We're going to let Ralph finish what it's doing. Ralph might even fix some of these bugs as it's going. And I estimate that before it was taking, actually let's just start another Claude. And then look at logs. At Ralph logs. And tell me how long. Actually, we've got a script for this, don't we? We can do Ralph status. I want to see how long each task is currently taking. And based on that, I can extrapolate that we have 22 still to go. We're doing about 4 minutes per task, which means we've got about an hour and a half to go. So I'm going to go off and I'm going to do something else for an hour and a half. I'm going to let Ralph keep going, and I'll be back. It's now currently 12:30-ish, 12:40 p.m. Central Time. I'll be back in a couple of hours probably. See how this goes. So I will. I'll see you then. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.